So this video is going to be discussing and introducing the idea of elasticity. In particular, we're going to be talking about elasticity of demand, but what you should keep in mind is that how we do price elasticity of demand will be very similar to how you'll be dealing with price elasticity of supply. Okay, so I'll try and remember the pattern. So the key thing to remember about the elasticity of demand, or price elasticity of demand, is that that measure is measuring the responsiveness of demand to a change in the price. And it's doing it in percentage terms. So the key thing, the reason we do it in percentage terms, it allows us to talk about the price elasticity of demand of apples and compare it to the price elasticity of demand of oranges. Using percentages, it's much easier to compare different commodities. And this is quite different from just relying on a slope, because the slope says something very different and actually does not make as much sense. So let's look at a demand curve, okay? Demand curve is downward sloping, so you have a negative relationship between price and quantity. And more important and critical to remember is that with the demand curve, consumers are responding to price. So they hear the price, and then they respond with the quantity demanded. So if we look at the slope, so we have 2 points here, point A and point B. Point A has a price of 0.8 and a quantity demanded of 40. Point B has a price of 0.7 and a quantity demanded of 60. So it makes sense. Price is high, price comes down, quantity demanded goes up. If we calculated the slope of that value, the slope would be negative 0.005. Okay, you can do the calculations. So if we were just doing the traditional interpretation of the slope, we would be saying if you increase the number of rides by 1, the price will come down by 0.005 cents. Okay? Now the problem is that doesn't fit with our model of hearing a price and determining a quantity. It's actually in reverse. So we do not want to think in terms of a slope. What elasticity is doing, so in this case price elasticity of demand, the price elasticity of demand is calculating the percentage change in quantity demanded over the percentage change in the price. So if we calculate, and we'll actually do this, if we calculate the slope between A and B, we would get a price elasticity of demand of -3. So obviously a different number from our negative 0.005. The interpretation following the pattern here is if you increase the price by 1%, the quantity demanded would decrease by 3%. So we're interpreting in terms of percentage, and we're consistent with the model of saying if there's a change in price, well, that will change the quantity demanded. Okay? So let's go through a calculation. So again, in introductory microeconomics, in our agricultural economics class, we do not have calculus yet. So normally we would talk about the elasticity of demand at a particular point, use calculus to calculate the exact measure of elasticity. In our case, we're going to use the arc elasticity formula, which is right here. So the arc elasticity of demand is simply, it's still consistent with percentage change in quantity demanded divided by the percentage change in price. So when we calculate the percentage change in quantity demanded, we're looking at the second level of quantity demanded minus the first level of quantity demanded divided by the average quantity. So the sum of the two divided by 2. All divided by the price, the second price minus the first price divided by average price. So this is how we calculate the price elasticity of demand using the arc elasticity formula. Okay, so let's set it up. So we're going to take this formula, use our 2 points. So let's start from the beginning. So first thing we want to do is calculate the percentage change in quantity demanded. We need our quantities. That's 60 and 40. So 60 minus 40, the difference in the quantity demanded, divided by the sum of the two divided by 2. This is the average. So we have our numerator, the price, 0.7 and 0.8. So 0.7 minus 0.8 divided by the average of those two prices. So 0.7 plus 0.8 divided by 2. And that's our denominator, the percentage change in price. And if you do the calculation, you'll get a value of -3. And we already interpreted that. If you have a 1% increase in the price, we would expect to see a 3% decrease in the quantity demanded. Okay? So we went through the calculation. And again, if you look at elasticity of supply, you would see a similar thing. The only difference being, instead of a negative value, we would see a positive value because there's a positive relationship between price and quantity for supply. Okay, the next thing we want to do, so we've gone from choosing 2 points, calculating the elasticity. Now what we want to do is say, let's start with an elasticity measure and use it to determine what the change in the quantity demanded would be. Okay, so we'll start out with an initial point, price quantity point. $10 is the initial price, 100 as the initial quantity demanded. And we'll just say that the elasticity of price elasticity of demand at that point is -1.1. So at that point, we're saying if there's a 1% increase in the price, there'll be a 1.1% decrease in the quantity demand. So our task is to say, okay, from this point with this elasticity measure, what's our new price and what's our new quantity? So first thing we'll do, we'll say, what's the original expenditure? And that's simply the price times the quantity, and that gives us $1,000. Okay, so since this elasticity is over 1, if there's a 1% increase in the price, so a 1% increase in the price means that the new price is going to be 101% of the original price. So we could say, if we translate a percentage into a numerical term, we could say 101% is just 1.01 times the original price. And so that gives us a new price of $10.10. Pretty easy. But now we have to figure out, based on this elasticity, what's the actual change in demand, not just the percentage. So we're saying that with this elasticity measure, that there's going to be a 1.1% decrease in the quantity demanded. So if we're taking it away, that's going to be the same thing as saying that the new quantity demanded is going to be 98.9% of the original quantity. That's just 100% minus 1.1% gives us 98.9%. So that means we're going to say, again, translating the percentage into a numerical term, 98.9% is the same thing as 0.989 times the original quantity, which was 100. And so our new quantity is going to be 98.9 units, and that equals our Q1. So we've determined the new P1, Q1. It seems to make sense. When the price goes up, the quantity demanded should go down. Price went up, and we saw the quantity went down from 100 to 98.9. And so we'll just calculate the new expenditure. So that's just the P1 times Q1. So our P1 is $10.10. Our new quantity is 98.9. So our new expenditure is going to be $998.89. So again, our expenditure, as a result of using this elasticity, price elasticity of demand, our expenditure went down from $1,000 to $998.89. Again, which seems to make sense. If you increase the price, the quantity demanded goes down, the expenditure goes down, but it's dependent on this elasticity of demand. You'll find in doing other calculations when you have lower elasticities of demand, lower than a certain value, you might even see expenditures go up as a result of the price change. And that will be some of your work in the future.